Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our special transmission on the OIC's very important moot that is being held in Islamabad. Earlier, the Prime Minister as well as the Foreign Minister spoke about it in detail, that what exactly is the objective, what sort of goals have been set. So he in fact talked about the 6-point framework, where they in fact talked about the immediate, perhaps the sustained support for the Afghan people. They also talked about the agreement to increase the investment coming in Afghanistan. As we all know, the Prime Minister also mentioned about it, that 75% of the total budget is in fact based on the foreign aid in Afghanistan. So you can well imagine about the overall situation. Then a group of experts, they also said, should be there so that they can look after their banking problems and the issues that are emerging, perhaps the experts in the financial field. And then food security, that is something which is very important. They talked about that. And investment in the building capacity area, that was again shared by our Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. He said that counter-terrorism perhaps is a very important area where we need to work. Increasing trade is another very important side where one has to really work hard. And then engagement with the Afghan authorities or the current political setup. And they need to be taken care regarding the political as well as the social aspect, and human rights issue perhaps is one of the most important, so that one can move forward. Now, to talk about it, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Dr. Auqaab Malik, expert on foreign affairs and international relations. Thank you so much, Dr. Auqaab, for your presence. And we also have with us from London, UK, Dr. Shahid Qureshi Saab, who is a senior analyst, and he's from the London Post. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Pleasure to have you in the program as well. And in a little while, we'll also be joined in by Brigadier retired Shahid Jagir Saab, who is a senior defense analyst. He's just joining us. And we'll be talking about, as I earlier mentioned, about the overall situation that has developed in Afghanistan. Acute shortage of medical facilities, acute shortage of food. Almost, it is believed that 60% of the total population of Afghanistan is at a verge of absolute catastrophe when we talk about the food issue and the food security, perhaps, clean drinking water, health or education. So now we've also been joined in by Brigadier Saab. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Now, Auqaab Malik, first of all, I think a great productive initiative taken by the government of Pakistan. Now, when we talk about the overall objectives, I earlier mentioned, the 6-point framework was in fact shared by the Foreign Minister. Parameters to judge the success of this moot. Let's start off from there, sir.
I think primarily one of the most important aspects of this meeting is to look at what is actually happening in Afghanistan right now, and put the emphasis on the people and the emphasis on the humanitarian needs of the country, as opposed to the regime that is in power at this moment in time, and their recognition in the widest field. We need to be rapid in this, and it's an urgent situation to avoid a catastrophe in real terms, in humanitarian terms. The people of Afghanistan are not responsible for the change of government. The people should not need to suffer then, I don't think. So I think this initiative here is very important, especially amongst the Islamic countries, because they've been watching but not doing much. And I think they have a moral responsibility towards the other people in Afghanistan more than anybody else. Whatever happens in the future, as far as the regime is concerned, is not the responsibility of the people. And I think the countries need to divorce, as Prime Minister was saying, and as the Foreign Minister was saying, divorce the people from the regime. The people are going to suffer. However, I also realize that in the West, they fear that whatever money or wealth or supplies and resources come into the country may be transported into shoring up the regime. And that does happen, and that's happened throughout history, not just in Afghanistan, in other countries. So they're very unsure about that, for the fact that they've been at war with these people, with the Taliban, for the last 20 years. So they don't trust them. I mean, there is no trust.
That is the actual problem.
That's a problem. But you can't deny the fact that the Taliban wanted power. Now they have it. And the West has said, well, now you've got it. Now deal with it. I mean, any government would want to do that. Now you've got it, you should have had something in place to recognize how a modern country is run.
Because it was Americans' wish, perhaps, to engage as far as the talks are concerned with the Taliban. Zalmay Khalilzad was so desperate. Once they did, they were successful. Eventually, the Americans, they, I would say, ran away from Afghanistan. And obviously, somebody had to fill in that vacuum. And even Ashraf Ghani himself wanted the Taliban. He was making calls to come and take over, because otherwise it is going to be an absolute problem. Now, coming to you, Brigadier Saab, first of all, since we talked about the initiative taken by the government of Pakistan, a very productive one. But sir, the kind of expectations that we are all having, and the six-point framework that was also introduced by the foreign minister, I think it is very comprehensive. These 6 areas, if they are taken care of, everything is going to be fine. But sir, having said that, I mean, when we talk about the capacity building, I mean, no matter how much money the countries can pledge, but you need to have that kind of a capacity to spend it. Looking at the current situation, sir, the first and the foremost important area is about the food security, the health facilities, because most of these NGOs, they have gone back. A lot of people, they have fled. A flight of capital is taking place at the same time. That is perhaps another reason. Now, sir, there are so many issues at hand. I mean, if you need to do the priority, how would you start off, sir? The first and the foremost important area.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me compliment the present government, Muslim Ummah, especially, especially the Saudi Arabians, which have taken the initiative to, in conjunction with Pakistan, to hold this conference. It's a great movement for the Muslim world. Second, this is the forum which is the second biggest forum after UN. And you see the number of Muslims we are in the world. This is again.
There's a slight problem with your mic, so I'll just get back to you on that. There's a technical issue. But let me also engage Dr. Shahid Qureshi Saab. Dr. Saab, being in London, obviously I've spoken to a lot of analysts from France, from Germany, from Sweden. One thing was there that nobody talks about, especially when we talk about the main media, the television, or perhaps in the papers. No, there is no news about the current Afghan crisis or the kind of issues they are facing at the moment, sir. Being in England, sir, where I think the Muslim population is a lot, Pakistanis live there, even people from Afghanistan, they are settled there as well. What exactly is happening on that particular front, sir, when you talk about the kind of engagement that really needs to be there between the Western world and the current regime out there, sir?
Well, thank you. I think Boris administration is quite busy about the corona pandemic, and we were at an emergency yesterday. Mayor of London news. uh, This is what's happening about pandemic and corona. Coming back to, I was listening to you and your guest, and I would I would suggest that the people who have been responsible for the invasion of Afghanistan are the states and allies. Uh, in the last 20 years, they spent over $2 trillion and they were not able to stabilize Afghanistan, destroy the road infrastructure, whatever they had. And they failed to replace a new infrastructure in all that time when they were there. So asking the same people who actually destroyed Afghanistan in last 20 years to come and help is sounds quite bizarre and quite strange, in my view. I think those people who have been invaders of Afghanistan in last 20 years, they should be put on trial and they should pay compensation to Afghan people and Afghan nation. And they, first of all, they should apologize to the Afghan people for all these death and destructions they've caused. But the apologetic uh, point of view and apologetic gestures coming from Muslim countries and Muslim nations is very strange. I think it's time Prime Minister Imran Khan has very clearly said that there was not a single terrorist who was linked with the Afghanistan in the 9/11 attack, and there is no criminal investigation of 9/11 to date. I have written a book on this war on terror and siege of Pakistan. I have read the 9/11 Commission report. I have read so much in-depth knowledge about 9/11. I have read the U.S. Veterans Report, what they're talking about, who is responsible for the 9/11 terrorist act. Uh, so, so what really seems to be happening is that everybody is toying, and United States being a superpower and the economic power has been very mean, I think. $9 billion is a small amount. You lost the war, you made a mess, you left, and then you are trying those people to suffer more. I mean, that shows that it's like more than 200 years ago when you were in slave trade, when you were having all these slaves coming and you were issuing these letters, how to catch a slave and what reward is to catch a slave, and so it's like you haven't changed in last 200 years, and that's both for Republicans and Democrats. And then this is disgraceful that these nations, I mean, Europe, United States is the biggest European alliance, with the largest number of the Europeans in
All
it.
right. I'll just get back to you on that, sir. But now, because of another point, I mean, I would like to put here, sir. So when we talk about the NATO or we talk about ISAF, all those countries who practically attacked or were a part of that group to invade Afghanistan, sir, none of them have come forward to help. And I'm talking about a number which was well over 55. Now, sir, when you talk about the OIC and the kind of influence that the Western world has on certain very important OIC members, perhaps the Gulf countries, do you think, sir, they'll be able to deliver? Because it seems, that the Americans, they are still, not accepting the defeat they already had in Afghanistan, sir. 20 years, $2.2 trillion, killing of so many people, the people from Afghanistan as well as the American soldiers. And at the end of the day, replacing Taliban with Taliban. So this is something which perhaps they are not ready to digest. So your take on that point.
Thank you very much. You have two questions of this. One is that will the OIC will be able to deliver? Second, will the Americans and the European will digest the defeat they have? Coming on to the first question, as I said, this is in the history of the world the first man-made crisis. It's not a God-made. Americans and the European Union, NATO, have made Afghanistan a firing range in a military term, what we say.
Absolutely.
To show
Absolutely.
to the world the military complexes which they have made. They have used all their new technology, whether you talk of
Mother of all bombs.
bomb, you talk of the daisy cutters, you talk of anything modern in the warfare weaponry, it has been tested in Afghanistan. Second,
all the experiments were conducted.
Second is, war is always taken as an instrument of policy. They had no policy. They had no clear-cut aim and objective of the war. They always have been, shifting the goalposts of the war. First they came after the Al-Qaeda, then they came, first they came to help the Taliban to defeat the Russians, then they made another goalpost defeating Al-Qaeda, then they made another goalpost defeating the Taliban, and now they have shifted the goal on, in my point of view, is having an influence on Afghanistan. It is exactly a replica of Vietnam War, which if one studies in details and the political and military lessons of the Vietnam War, it is exactly the replica of that, and that is reflected to the world and to the common man, the way they left the Vietnam and the way they left Afghanistan. So they do not have objective of building building the Afghanistan, which Biden has very clearly said that we have not come here to rebuild Afghanistan. That answers your first question. Second is the potentials and the capability of the OIC. Yes, they do have influence of the Western world on them, but we are a big ummah, you know. Even $1 by an individual, I just say $1 by an individual will accumulate about $57 billion. This is the time for us as a Muslims. I'm talking of the bigger canvas, Muslims, that we show to the world that we can help out our brothers. They are in the same condition in which the Muslims left Makkah and went to Medina with nothing in their hand. One. Second is that this gathering shows that we have concern about our brothers and sisters of Afghanistan. Why the European Union and the Americans are not helping out? They are not even giving their money, which is lying in America and
This is
Europe.
the Afghan money.
You have to understand their culture. There is a European culture. If I love a dog and I can't see him in trouble, but if I hate a human being, my humanity does not allow me. My humanity rules as a European and American does not allow me to help you out and let you starve and die. Now that is what the history has shown us. OIC has a big potentials. They can collect the charity, yearly charity zakat, which the Muslims give. This money would be more than enough for Afghanistan to rebuild and reconstitute. Second comes the technology, the infrastructure development, the HR. Well, we do have very good doctors. We do have Muslims have very good engineers. We do have very competent, hard-working, unskilled Afghan labor with us.
Oh, yes.
They work throughout the world. You know, Afghans and Pathans, there's one saying about them. They don't beg. They don't beg, they work. They earn their living. You will see in a place like Islamabad, F6 and F7, which is one of the posh locality of the Pakistan, you see the Afghan with the boot polishers. You know, they keep roaming and they earn money. So they can work. There is no problem. The only thing is how you harness all these resources.
Absolutely.
And how you put on the ground. That the foreign minister has very rightly said that the 6-point agenda, the short-term, medium-term and long-term goals. And you will see Afghanistan coming up extremely well. The second point in this is, Afghanistan is not a poor country. It has
a lot of resources.
You know, gold, copper, lithium, which is more expensive than the gold nowadays when the world is
Future
converting
is all about
into
lithium
the
now.
electric cars
Vehicles
and all.
and batteries, basically. Yeah?
So the only issue is that we harness all this, put our heads together, have this will that we have to help our brothers and Afghan sisters. And last of all, I would say that history says that it is not the resources but the will of the people which make the difference.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Auqaab, a very encouraging statement, and that is also related to the previous question that I had put to Brigadier Saab, that Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, he said that urgent need is, there is an urgent need for food and for so many other, in fact, very important commodities. And he said that we are committed under the goals and the principles of the OIC. Now, that's very encouraging. So at least there is a ray of hope that if Saudi Arabia is giving this kind of a statement, so a lot of other countries will follow them.
Well, as I say, proof is in the pudding. Statements don't make the reality. The fact of the matter is that everybody's going to make a positive statement here. What will come out and transpire, what will be the result, is what will really matter. And unfortunately, I don't think most people really know what's going on because they just hear things and think things are going to work out well, and they'll forget about it. That's reality. Until a few weeks down the line when we see thousands of Afghans dying. So I think it's very urgent that the Saudis realize that it's not just a word, but they put the commitment in within this conference. Say we're going to put billions of dollars down here. And I'm very easily assured that they have lots of money to do that. They've got plenty of money to waste on other things. They can transfer those into something that absolutely is necessary and morally responsible for them to do. And there's a lot of other countries that are very rich, Muslim countries that are very rich, that spend on frivolous things for their own needs. And if they talk about Ummah, as you do, then this is a time to prove it.
Yeah.
Because it's not been proven for a long time
for
to
a
come.
very long time.
I haven't seen it proven in my lifetime. Yeah. Maybe I'm only 31, plus tax. But the fact of the matter is that let's see them prove it. Yeah. The previous person who talked from London Post. Yeah. I do agree, but I also understand that the situation is that the Americans came to invade. They was the enemy of the Taliban. Taliban resisted them, etc. So to expect the enemy to do something for you on a moral basis is very good. But actually doing something you can't expect them to do, you know. And I think it's very important to realize that expectations shouldn't come in that way. Yeah. I think that as a Muslim country, Afghanistan has become a model for resistance to an extent. Yeah. And as a Pashtun, I'm very proud. But I'm also aware that the Taliban must show some leniency to its own population. And this is a demand that the West, for example, has had, and Pakistan has had, and many other Muslim countries have had, since the beginning of this Taliban regime, which they've not fulfilled. So once
the Western
these things...
world always, Dr. Auqaab talks about the, the human rights issue, the women rights. But over here, people are practically dying because of the shortage of food.
But Pakistan's been talking about that as well. Other Muslim countries have been... Nobody's recognized. Why is that? It's not just taking the lead from the West. It's the fact that the Taliban must become mature now. Now, they are the government, and it's not like 20 years ago. And this is not a village. This is a country that's developed. It needs professionals, technocrats, diplomats to run the system. Now, if you threaten them, like they used to do before, people are not trustworthy there. Yeah? They're not trustworthy as far as the population is concerned. They're under fear. So they must induce trust within the population as well to get them to come back and actually work. And I think these people are patriotic people. They love their own country.
But Dr. Auqaab, there's another point. A lot of people do believe that it's more or less the, like the Syrian regime where minority is ruling the majority. Do you think that is a correct statement? Because I believe that a lot of people who live in the villages, the majority of Afghan people, they are okay with the Taliban. Perhaps a few liberated minds, they have issues, those who live in the cities, or perhaps they have fled already.
But that's true, though. Yeah, that's true everywhere. But the country is run through the economy, and the people who are generally more educated run the economy. And without them, you can't have an economy. I remember when I was in Afghanistan in the late 90s, and I met the minister of the Afghanistan bank chairman. He was a 24-year-old mullah without any economics training. Do you get where I'm going? Yeah. You need to incorporate the people that were already there and not punish them for what...
The right person for the right job.
You need that. And the fact of the matter is you have to realize that the Taliban are fighters, and they're great fighters. Yeah. But they're not going to be able to run an economy without the necessary education, the experience, and practical involvement for years, which has been the case for the last 20 years. And the speaker on Skype indicated that they've destroyed the country. Actually, this country was destroyed after the Soviet Union left and the civil war erupted. The Mujahideen and the Taliban, everybody just bombarded each other. It was the Afghans to blame to destroy the country, the infrastructure. The Americans came in. They're actually, if you've been to Kabul recently, you'll see it's massively improved from what it was 20 years ago. And I was there before, and I've seen it recently. And I assure you, it's very different.
What Dr. Saab is saying, I would just add to that. Just see the movie, Hollywood movie of 12 Strong. How they say that Afghans have destroyed. It is the very initial phase of the Afghan war, of the Afghan civil war. You know, and then you have to understand the Afghan culture also. This is very important. The West and the Europe, West and the Americans are not ready to understand. You know, every society has its own moral, has its own culture to live.
Absolutely.
You cannot accept the Afghanis to live like Americans. You cannot expect
their cultural aspect is so strong, sir.
To live, have the human rights of
the Americans. They always invade countries in the name of.
Is this the human right that there are people dying?
Absolutely.
There are people dying.
Food is more important.
And the other guy is holding up its money. You know, I let you.
I'm not holding up the money.
No, I understand. I totally agree.
But the point,
on one end, it's their own money that should be unfrozen and given back to them. Their poor people are begging for it because harsh winters are there. So just imagine the life without the basic essential items, you know, that keeps you going. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, important area of discussion now, coming to you, Dr. Shahid Qureshi Saab. Let's suppose even a certain amount is pledged in cash and kind, both, which most likely will happen. But sir, one important area is about the capacity building, let me put it this way, because you need a system to in fact have that kind of a trickle down effect. For example, when you talk about the health services, so those NGOs, those people are no more there in Afghanistan. How to look after that very important area. You think groups like Doctors Beyond Borders should also be involved, or certain NGOs should be approached, and then who is going to make sure that their security is guaranteed, sir? Because at the end of the day, the Taliban, they have got so much in their plate. I mean, you talk about the Daesh factor or ISK factor or the non-state actors that are present there. So there are a lot of spoilers also.
Well, when it comes to the governance, I think the Afghans, the Taliban have a basic principle. They are very clear about it. Basic principle of clarity is how to run an area. For example, masjid, and they were using masjid as a base to implement their orders, and this is where it is their they run their system. So let's talk about the minimum level of governance system they can run, because they have boots on the ground, they have teams, they have administration, they have people on the ground to run it. When it comes to the food and shortages of food provision, I think the neighbors of Afghanistan already, Pakistan is already doing, and other neighbors should come forward. I do not expect the United States and its allies who have been destroying Afghanistan, who have been killing and who have been involved with death and destruction of Afghanistan in the last 20 years, to be involved in any kind of reconstruction. They should be put on trial. They should have a war criminal investigation in the International Criminal Court. That's their place. And they should pay the compensation to Afghan people for causing all this death and destruction. And I think it is time that people should come forward and call spade a spade, that you destroyed Iraq in the false weapons of destruction, which doesn't exist. You destroyed Syria, Yemen, and other places. Pakistan has lost more than 80,000 people, 150,000 in financial losses.
That's correct.
Destruction of infrastructure. Because all this happened because your leadership or your politicians, your bureaucrats, they never raised this issue with the Americans. I was talking to Sheikh Kasuri when he was here when the US Central Command said, we caused $10 billion economic losses by the airstrikes we conducted from Pakistan.
All
And I
right, all
asked
right.
him, I said, what did you ask the United States to compensate you? And he said, they haven't. And then this coalition support fund, they were giving you a small amount of money.
All right.
The bulk of
Dr.
the
Shahid
cost
Qureshi
you
Sahab,
have,
thank you very much, sir,
16 billion,
for your
16
time.
billion.
Since we are totally running out of time, sir, I would like to say thank you once again because your input was really valuable. Brigadier, it was a pleasure having you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And Dr. Auqaab, it's always good to have you on the show, sir. Thank you so much for your time as well. And that's all we have for this hour. Our transmission is going to continue later after the news also. But time to say goodbye from me. Khuda Hafiz.